listening. I'm Frank Powers, and this is Lifestyle Tucson, the program where I speak to our neighbors, the people behind the scenes of our amazing organizations, small businesses, and nonprofits. Our friends are informing you how they serve our community, and they are here to give you updates on future projects. Let's make some new friends today. If you've ever wished you could grow your own tasty organic food, Community Gardens of Tucson has a plot for you. They have 17 gardens located across the city, each with automatic irrigation tools. And when you garden with the Community Gardens of Tucson, you become a member of a supportive gardening community that is with you every step of the way. Meet new friends and have lots of fun while enjoying your harvest. And making new friends is the theme of Lifestyle Tucson. So I give that message a big green thumbs up, because today I'm fortunate enough to speak with Natalie Shep, Board Vice President of Community Gardens of Tucson. Natalie, welcome to Lifestyle Tucson.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you. My friend Tom gave me the scoop on what you're doing, and I love community gardens because community is my favorite thing. Even in movies, I love when a ragtag group of kids get together and work on a project, and at the end, they save the orphanage or, in fact, maybe feed a community here. So that's really fun. Why don't you give me a little 101 about what the Community Gardens of Tucson is all about?
Sure. So the Community Gardens of Tucson we're now a 30-year-old nonprofit organization. We have 17 gardens located throughout the city of Tucson, and it's designed so that people can sign up for a 6-month growing period. And you basically rent a plot. The plots are about 60 square feet. And when you opt in for that growing period, you're going to pay $22 a month, and that's going to get you the water, the space, the education, the tools. And then gardeners themselves need to basically supply the soil amendments, compost, manure, things like that, seeds and plants. And so it's a great way to, if you've never gardened before, especially, or if you've come from the East Coast and you come here and you want to garden. Oftentimes we do see people who are maybe trying to grow in the same way they did back east or in the Midwest, and oftentimes, it's opposite here. So you have to kind of relearn how you're growing. So it's a great way to get that education. And then, it is the Community Gardens of Tucson. So the idea is that we are building community through gardening, and that we bring people together in these beautiful spaces and share produce amongst ourselves, share ideas, make it a beautiful community space. And it is really wonderful to be a part of it. And I'm happy to be on the board and to have been a part of the organization for the last 13 years.
I mean, that sounds super cheap. I'm canceling Disney Plus as I speak because I'd rather leave the house, get off the couch, and come hang out and make some real friends.
That's right.
Those new Marvel shows have been terrible. All right. So that's the thing about it. I want people to really realize what this is because, again, it's another one of our great organizations in Tucson that's providing an opportunity to fight against the thing that everyone still claims exists. I'm bored, right? A lot of people are bored. A lot of people think there's nothing to do. And I always tell people to go volunteer, go get involved, but specifically get out of the house. And this is how people make friends. I have a lot of adult friends that they don't know how to make new friends. And I've always told them that volunteering is the way to do it. My big message that I always say, and it might be every episode, don't make your friends do the things you want to do. Make friends with people doing the things that you want to do.
Exactly.
They're out there. You don't need to go start your own community garden organization. There's one that's been around for 30 years, and you might just be hearing about it now. That's why I love what I do here at Lifestyle Tucson. We get to shout out the good news here in our community, and build that community, and not just build, but grow. That's the word of the day, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. So when it comes to the gardens, let's talk about the programs because you have a lot of great programs, and I really want to take the time to just dissect them a little bit because I want to go through them one by one. So let's talk about the first one. That is the one that got my attention the most, and it's helping kids because helping kids is really the other main thing that I love to do with the show, getting awareness out there for things that kids can do. So you have your Kids in Gardens program for youth K through 6th. Tell me about that one.
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout out to Jessica Paul, who basically created this program from the ground up. She has participated in a number of different trainings to really educate herself and build the curriculum out so that students can really learn about all the benefits of gardening. So it's everything from soil preparation to when to plant. She's working with schools and with homeschool groups, and she's going out to different schools such as Homer Davis, Mary Meredith, Pio Decimo, working with a wide variety of students and the teachers. And there's so many benefits that come from getting kids in the garden. Not only, I mean, we definitely have some public health issues, right, that are addressed just in one fell swoop with kids in the garden. And, we look at things like the, obesity rates that are happening, diabetes. So, of course, if you look at food, when kids actually have a hand in growing the food, planting the seeds, pulling a carrot out of the ground, they really have buy-in. And when they have buy-in, they're much more likely to actually eat that food.
That makes a lot of damn sense.
Yes, it does.
Pardon my language.
Yes. When you actually plant a seed and you watch that sprout and you tend to it, you do end up wanting to eat it. I've seen it time and time again. So it really has a big impact just on what they're eating, but there are other impacts too. I mean, you're looking at physical health. They're out there digging. They're working the compost and doing all those different things that take physical exertion. And the other thing that people really don't think about that I've been trying to talk about more is the mental health benefits, because we do know that we have a mental health crisis in this country, probably around the world post-COVID. And there's something that happens when you get in the garden and that you kind of don't expect necessarily. For myself, I got into gardening because I wanted to grow vegetables. And I've really found that the impact that I'm having, the benefit it's having on me, is even bigger in the mental health space. So if we can get those kids out in the garden, cooperating with one another, just having your hands in the soil, being outside in a fresh air and a beautiful space that has flowers growing, bees pollinating flowers. You can watch that activity. You can see what's happening in a compost pile and how you can take waste and actually then put it back into your plot and watch your plants grow from the waste. There is just something that's really invigorating, and it can have a really big impact for kids when they get out in the garden. So it's a really helpful program, and we're happy that we have it. We're happy we have Jessica leading it.
No, it is a big deal, and it even does help low-income communities too. I saw and read about, which is a huge thing to do, because again, there's not a ton of opportunities for everyone equally. But when it comes to gardening and doing that, there are. You don't need an iPad to garden.
That's right. Yeah, it gets you away from the iPad. Really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I'm not sure if you notice, kids love tools.
Yes.
Gardening comes with a lot of tools that we don't think about. It's not about bandsaws and sharp things like that, but it is about shovels, digging. Kids love to dig.
Oh my gosh. I used to work at the Tucson Village Farm, so I worked with kids all the time in the garden, and I didn't find one kid who didn't want to dig in the soil with a shovel that was the right size for them. You got to make sure you get the right size tools, and once you do, they're out there. And it's kind of just, I guess, core to who we are. Obviously, it's kind of where we came from, and it just comes right back. You just see it that it's just something they want to do, and it's fantastic to watch.
Yeah, we were talking off air a little bit about let's go to the next program, and it's what kind of just expands on the kids gardening. It's family gardening. So it's not just the kids. Get your brother, get your sister, get your older siblings, get the cousins, get the parents out. All my friends with kids are always so bored because they can't afford to go do all the things. Going to the movies now is a fortune.
Yeah.
Doing lots of things is really tough to do with the family, and they're always trying to entertain their kids, constantly figuring out new ways to entertain their kids. You can't sign them all up for hockey. You can't sign them all up for every sport and send yourself everywhere. Give yourself the freedom of volunteering. It's not a commitment like, again, I bring up sports because my nephew is in hockey, and the amount of expense that my friends back in the Northeast, hockey's big, lacrosse is big, they will spend so much time and effort in these camps and these things and the equipment, and it's so much. Whereas getting out there with your entire family to do a fun community activity, whether it's volunteering at some of these organizations helping the homeless, right? That can be a little scary for an adult.
Yeah.
People have stranger danger. You're not going to be afraid of plants,
Right.
all right? So go out and help these gardens and give yourself a weekend opportunity to really say like, hey kids, we're going to play farmer this weekend. We're doing this. This is a big day. It's a big fun event. So I love the family gardening program and the camp about it. So tell me about the family gardening camp.
Well, we really the best opportunity to get into the garden with families is, well, if you're a gardener, obviously, and you're renting a plot, then we would encourage you to bring your family out there and be a part of it. When I started, when I got involved with the Community Gardens of Tucson, it was through starting one of our gardens at the Highland Vista Garden. And the reason that I wanted to do that, I had small children at the time. And I attempted to grow a garden in my backyard, but I'm in an older neighborhood. I have a lot of overgrown vegetation, and it just wasn't conducive to growing well. I had too much shade. So I worked with the community gardens of Tucson to start a garden in my neighborhood. And then I started actively growing and working in the garden with my children. And I found that was really, it was just so amazing to be able to see how excited they were about it. And like I said, they love to see the result of it. But even if it's just for one day and you're not, a renter of a plot, you can still get out there every Saturday. We have the garden work days. So we started doing this just last year, and we found that it's been really, really successful. It's an opportunity for people who aren't already involved in the community gardens of Tucson to come check out the gardens, actually do the work in the garden, bring the whole family. There's going to be a wide variety of projects, even from things from just doing basic, compost maintenance to, we have raised beds at some of our gardens that needed to be built, or we have Bermuda grass issues. So just getting that Bermuda grass tended to. We have a lot of different projects where we're building things. We recently had a Eagle Scout come out and build a board, like a community board in front of one of our gardens.
Oh, nice.
And so we have those now. We're starting. We weren't doing it when it was too hot outside, but now that it's getting into the cooler months, we are going to start scheduling those again starting in September. And every single Saturday, there's going to be a different work day at a different garden with different activities, and then there's an educational component to it as well. So each garden work day, part of the time you're in there working with your kids, working with the family, working with the other people in the garden, and the other part of the time there's going to be some sort of educational element to it. One of the ones that's coming up is on September 9th at the Blue Moon Community Garden, which is one of our most beautiful gardens. It's located right next to the Tucson House. Near downtown Tucson. And we're going to have just a general gardening 101 workshop that day.
Love it.
So if you're just getting started, join us out at the Blue Moon Garden on September 9th. And in the morning, I think it's 8 in the morning, we're going to have all of those work days posted on our website. And you can join anyone, and you don't even, you just show up. You don't have to RSVP or anything like that.
Oh, brilliant. All right. Make your plans, mark your calendar. If you don't make that one, every Saturday you got something to do with the family and the kids. How old were your kids when this started?
They were about 4 and 7.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
I love it because I'm willing to bet that that's the big thing about doing it with very, very young kids. You can impact something that might make them go, oh, this might be what I want to do for my whole life, right? Getting involved, getting out with plants. And I think removing some of the fear, I think, is a part of it, because something you do as a kid, then later you're like, no, it's easy to grow tomatoes. This is how you do it. That's a really big, important thing for growing up. And I think that that's just really amazing to really get kids out there doing that stuff and getting the hands-on experience and getting dirty.
And just learning about where their food comes from.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you from any experience working with kids, if you were to ask a child who hasn't been in the garden or been on a farm, where does your food come from? Do you know what the answer would be?
McDonald's.
Or the store.
The store.
That's the answer.
Yeah.
So we need to make the connection of where it's actually coming from and what it involves it involves a lot of time and energy.
Yeah.
We're dealing with some pretty significant challenges with climate change, that things that were predictable are no longer predictable.
Right.
So it's a matter of kind of connecting just yourself to the earth and really being dialed in to what's happening. Those are valuable skills to be teaching young people.
They are. I honestly say this a lot. I think that some of the people, when we talk about mental health, I feel that some of the people that have that problem when it comes to, I'll say specifically men and young men, is they are disconnected from nature to a degree, the biology of all of us, that we are part of this ecosystem. And I think that guys really lose some of their humanity to a degree. And some of that is being stuck inside, being introverted, not getting the skills to then become a little outgoing, and they get trapped, and that ends up being some of that incel movement in a way where kids are incapable, and they end up being really negative and resentful toward the rest of the world. And the Surgeon General talked about this past year. I'm not sure if you heard this. Loneliness was declared an epidemic right now. And I know it. I know that's a problem because I don't have it. I don't have that problem, but I had it when I was a kid. And I just flexed this muscle to be this outgoing guy because I didn't want to be the nerd I saw in every movie that just was getting beat up like I was. And that's kind of the point. But I know a lot of people and an entire generation are having a tough time because of some of the disconnect, the stranger danger, the phones and the technology being a little too distracting and a little too serotonin addicting and that sort of stuff, you're going to feel that serotonin when you are involved in a community garden.
Absolutely.
You have to pry yourself out of the house and you have to leave your comfort zone, because you'll never be comfortable if you don't walk towards something that you're afraid of. And I always tell people that you'll never find the light switch for a dark room if you don't go in it. And it might be right there on the wall or it might be across the room, but go toward it and it'll solve your problem. And that's why I was so excited to talk to you, because I know I've already told people privately about, like, oh, you have to see this organization that I'm going to interview, because it's exactly what you've been complaining about. It's exactly what you think doesn't exist. It's exactly what you think you need to start. All of you should just get together. You all know me, right? Go. Just go on a Saturday and get involved.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about food resiliency. That's another program that you have, and it's important. It's funded, provides low to no cost gardening opportunities, primarily economically marginalized individuals.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we have a couple different facets we're working on in that space. One is that we offer scholarships or plot fee assistance to those who qualify. And we do have a good number of our gardeners are on plot fee assistance. It's a tiered system depending on different factors. You can definitely look at our website, communitygardensoftucson.org, to see all the details about that. We want to make sure that our gardens are open to everybody, not just to people who can afford the $22 a month. So that's a big part of what we do. And then the other thing is that we have recently received a grant from the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. They have a Thriving Communities grant we received this year. And we really want to be looking at our model and deciding, is this a model that works for everybody? And I think that we've come to the conclusion that we might need to make some changes and do some tweaking to ensure that there's things like accessibility, right? So we have raised beds, but can you get around the raised beds in a wheelchair? Is the ground too uneven to walk on if you have a walker? Or if you have some disability. So we're looking at accessibility issues. And then getting back to the grant, we got the grant for the Blue Moon Garden, which is the one I mentioned previously. Because that's located at right next to Tucson House, which is the largest low-income housing unit that the city owns.
Okay.
Most of the folks who live in the Tucson House are disabled or elderly or veterans, and they need extra assistance. So most of the folks in that garden are on plot fee assistance, but it also has a beautiful ramada with tables and chairs. It has an orchard. It has a composting toilet. And so we really want to build up that space as a community building space. It's also in the Thrive in the O5 community, which is the city's initiative to basically improve the 85705 neighborhood.
Oh.
And they really are using our garden as a flagship space for folks. We want to look at it like, how can we make this space really welcoming even for people who are houseless? How can we make it so that they feel welcome coming in and being a part of it? Maybe, community plots, being able to pick from the orchard, provide educational opportunities so they can understand, how to prepare the food. A lot of people will grow food and they'll just like, I don't know what to do with it, or I have too much of it. How do I deal with storage, that kind of thing. So we are going to be building more educational opportunities at that garden, and it is specifically designed for low-income people. And that particular garden, it's specific for that community. We're really targeting that community. There's a lot of need there. There's a lot of homelessness. There's a lot of addiction that you see there. You see a lot of conflict. There's a number of incidences that have happened in that garden. So it kind of provides us with a new perspective to really be able to look at what are we offering and how do we tweak it so that it actually works for everybody. In our historical model, we kind of rely on every single gardener to learn how to change their drip tape and do that if they get a leak or if it needs to be changed. Well, that might not be a realistic expectation for people who are disabled or really elderly, right? So we need to be looking at that and determining what works for everybody. And so we're really trying to do that through this opportunity that we've gotten with the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. And then we're going to learn from it and hopefully build on it. And then we do have a number of other gardens that are located in similar kinds of communities, and we want to make sure that the garden is working for the folks that live there. So
as you're saying all that, the only word that pops in my head is oh, you're defining a beacon, and beacons are always usually associated with beacons of hope. That's what you have right there. That garden is a beacon for people looking for something, and you just described exactly what so many people are looking for, right? So go find that garden and find these gardens. They're all over our community in Tucson. With how many are you up to, did you say?
17.
17. That's incredible. Looking into the next year, do you have plans, or is there like a template for your goal is to open 3 new gardens a year or 5 a year, or is like, how does that work?
It's a good question, and it does come up a lot. It's not uncommon that we get approached by folks who are like, I'd really like to start a community garden in my neighborhood. Oftentimes those questions come to me because I'm the person on the board who did it with the Highland Vista Garden. We don't really have those goals. We might someday, but I'll tell you what, just running a nonprofit, we have, a very small amount of funds for paid staff, which we do have. But we're trying to just become, not a work, like our working board is basically doing a lot of the works. We're trying to hire an executive director and get to the point where we're a little bit more stable. And I think we are getting there. We've definitely grown our board of directors lately. We have a lot of great new folks with new ideas. So we're kind of just working on stability. And then once we get to that point, once we have an executive director and we can do more fundraising, then we would be willing to grow in that way. But it's not easy. The thing is about gardens is that oftentimes people will start, I've seen it a lot because I have been in this world for a number of years now with school gardens and with community gardens. It's not uncommon for people to love the idea, start the garden, and then not understand what it takes to maintain it and keep it sustainable.
Yes, I think that's a lot of hobbies and things.
Yes.
A lot of things I just say it's joining the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easy to join, easy to sign up. It's also easy to start a small business when you're just making the funny name and the logo. And then beyond that, it's like, oh, wait.
There's all this work.
There's all this work to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's it. And so we're not discouraging folks. What we do is we are very clear now about what it takes. You need to make sure you have a piece of property that it has access to water, that you can get the shed, that you can fence it off, and that you've got volunteers in place. Each garden needs to have a site coordinator. That site coordinator then needs to organize all the gardeners, make sure they've paid, make sure that they have the education they need, they know how to do the irrigation, et cetera. I mean, it's a lot. There's composting that happens. A lot of our gardens have orchards, so that's additional maintenance. So it's just a lot to maintain, and you just have to make sure that you've got what you need to really make it work. Because if it doesn't work, and you open a garden, and in a year or two, it's just another piece of barren land, you're kind of showing people it doesn't work, and we don't want to do that. We actually want to show people that it does work.
Right.
So it needs to be sustainable in order for us to acquire new gardens. I will say a couple of years ago, we did acquire an existing garden, the Pio Decimal Garden, that's in South Tucson. It had been a garden that had been managed by the community for many, many years. And then they found themselves in a place where they couldn't do it anymore. And they asked us to take it over. And in that case, we did, because it was already well established and we could see that it already had its history there. So I can't say it never happens, but having goals to have more gardens is probably a little bit in the future, but not completely out of the question.
Hey, you know how to grow things. You don't want to overwater this plant. That's
Right,
exactly right. That's exactly right. A lot of the downfalls of lots of things is expansion too quick, or not keeping it the right stable size. You talking about stability is exactly what you're looking to do. It makes sense because you don't want to just make a egregious error with something just because it is. I'm shocked personally. I feel like community gardens should just be a movement that one day will be a tidal wave of like, oh, everyone finally started doing it, because it just makes sense. And then you sometimes see it in other countries or on rooftop gardens in those urban centers. And it's like, yeah, why isn't that just the standard? And that's because certain people are in power and they stop that sort of thing.
I would love to see that happen. I think it could, we're starting to build relationships with the city of Tucson. The city of Tucson has their climate action plan. Tucson Resilient Together, I believe it's called. And one of the things in their plan that they want to do to address climate change is really promote local food production and more composting to deal with their waste issues that they have at the landfill. So we are going to be starting to have 4 of our gardens coming up. We will be hearing about this soon. Will be drop-off sites for compost. That's another thing. So there's a lot of people who may not have the time or inclination to grow, but they know that they don't want their their food waste to be going in the trash. They would love to be able to compost it. They just can't compost it at home. Maybe they live in an apartment or they just don't have the ability to do it. So we're going to be working with the city to do that, and so that people can drop off their compost, and then we can build compost for our gardens, and working with Compost Cats, which is another entity that's working with the city.
I love the compost cats.
Yes.
Yes, I'm going to try to have them on. I asked if I could have them on, and they're like, oh, we're not technically a 501c3. We work for this. So I'm like, I think that kids doing this is fine. I'll be able to get them on here at some point.
You should.
Yes, I want to do that. I'll be honest with you, it's we're like running out of time. We've talked about all this stuff.
Right.
Can you believe it? I almost want to ask you a question. Like, do you want to just go longer and have 2 parts, or do you want to just sum it up and
If you want to keep talking.
I want to keep talking.
Okay.
And we did keep talking. Me and Natalie were having such a good conversation that I just kept the action happening because we really only got through the programs happening there at the Community Gardens of Tucson. I had a lot more questions to talk about: how people can get involved, how people can donate, and other ways that people can learn about the Community Gardens of Tucson. So we talked for another 25 minutes that you can catch on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. I want you to subscribe while you're there. I'm doing a lot of work for Lifestyle Tucson. I really care about everything that we've been doing and building this brand over the past year, making some of these community affairs a bit more fun and getting you the good news on top of, everything happening in the world. That's what I like to do here with the show, and that's why we kept the conversation going. So I really did enjoy my conversation with Natalie of Community Gardens of Tucson. Let's get to a recap, because you can find out more information by signing up for their newsletter, of course. And you can go to Instagram at Community Gardens Tucson, follow them there, or Facebook at facebook.com/Community Gardens of Tucson. Really, really good time there. Please go get involved and help out. Now, I got to talk about another thing real quick, because the other thing about Lifestyle Tucson is local events. And I got a letter. That's right, I got a letter from someone that didn't have time to come on the show. She's going to be a guest in a little bit, but I want to promote an event for her right here, right now. So it says, my name is Miranda Lopez. I'm the Southern Arizona Regional Director for the Arizona Students Association. I wanted to first introduce myself and my organization, and second, see if we would be able to promote one of our upcoming events on Lifestyle Tucson. The ASA is a 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to advocating for students' rights in the state legislature, developing student leaders on university campuses, and mobilizing students to take action against legislation targeted against students' best interests. This event is coming up. It's our Youth Empowerment Caucus, a unique opportunity for students to learn how to exercise their power and directly impact their communities on issues they care about. The first 3 hours of the event will be dedicated to a sit-down discussions with students on various issues such as LGBTQ+ rights, climate change, and gun violence. The final hour from 4:15 to 5:15 will be dedicated to local representatives and candidates running for office, connecting with student-led groups and student leaders in a roundtable discussion. Well, there you go. Tell those kids in your life about this pinnacle event on August 30th from 1 to 5:30 p.m. at the U of A Student Union South Ballroom. It's going to be a very important get-together, and I think that's a great thing. If you've got events going on, let me know about them. I can squeeze them on in and talk about them, so that if you don't have time for an interview, we can at least get a PSA about what you're doing, or at least a little shout-out for you from me. Going back now a sec, I want to thank our new friends at Community Gardens of Tucson for joining me today. You've been listening to Lifestyle Tucson. If you're a nonprofit that would like to be on the show, email lifestyletucson@gmail.com. For more information about this program, or to listen to something you may have missed, go to the Sunday Mornings page on klpx.com, kfma.com, mixfm.com, or espntucson.com. You can also subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever fine podcasts are sprouting. Go listen to the second half of this amazing interview with the Community Gardens of Tucson right now. It was a great, great time. You can follow on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Lifestyle Tucson, because I'm your BFF, your best Frank forever, Frank Powers, Toot Toot Tucson. I love you the most.